What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another World Cup 2022 fantasy video, and in this one it's my team selection for match day 3. Now, if you remember, I wildcarded in match day 2, so as long as I don't know what to call it, the wildcard hack, the wildcard trick, as long as that works, I should have a fresh new team for match day 3. That's what I'm going to show you in this video just after I've gone through how I'm doing in match day 2 so far. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. So currently I'm on 42 points, 99 points overall. So it's 42 for match day 2, 99 points in total. I'm just inside the top 200k. So it's nothing awful, it's nothing special whatsoever either. But let's see what else happens in match day 2, because I'm recording this before the final 4 games. So I've still got Milinkovic and Tadic from Serbia, Kudus, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, from Ghana, and then Richarlison from Brazil as well. So hopefully they'll bring me in some points and we can increase that overall rank even more. In terms of the players that have already played, obviously Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire got the clean sheet for England. Wasn't a great game to watch whatsoever, wasn't a great performance from England. USA played well, they probably had the better chances as well. And obviously I think Pulisic hit the bar too, so maybe a bit lucky to get that clean sheet, but still obviously happy with that. Di Maria and Messi combined as well. I mean, both the assists in the Argentina game, it was obviously Di Maria to Messi, and Messi just had the absolute worldie from outside the box. So it was definitely a fantasy assist more than a kind of what I would call a proper assist, but it still counts, so who cares. And then obviously Messi, I think it was from the corner, right, for that absolute beauty of the second goal for Argentina. So again, a bit of a fantasy assist there, but we take it. And Messi was my captain. I moved from Harry Kane, he was on 1 point, so that was kind of easy. I did make a couple of what the hell picks. I went for Hazard and Castagna to try and have a bit of fun, but then I remembered that Belgium are awful and picking their players just was not a good idea at all, so neither of them did anything. Dumfries obviously conceded as well, no attacking returns for him so far. And Kamada for Japan, they probably should have won that game, and I think if they now don't go through to the knockouts, that's going to feel really bad, because you get the win over Germany, great performance, great result, and then not to beat Costa Rica and then to possibly go out, not great at all. And he obviously only came in for 1 point. So I've done okay. It's just nothing special. I just need that really big game week or match day where everyone does really well, and so far that hasn't happened. I've still got 4 players to play, so you never know. We cross our fingers, but so far it just feels a bit meh. It's like, it's okay, it's just nothing special, and I need that special match day. Maybe that'll be match day 3. So let's start off with the defenders and goalkeepers first of all. Now, one defender I don't have in this team as it stands is Theo Hernandez. And I think for match day 3, we probably need to be conscious that some teams are going to rotate, especially like France when they've already got 6 points on the board. Brazil could have 6 points as well if they win their second game. There's a high chance of rotation. I've already seen some tweets suggest that France could rest like as many as 5 or 6 players. Now, that doesn't mean the whole 11 is going to get rotated and Theo Hernandez might start. And because we have transfers to use within the match day, you could take a few risks, and if you see the lineup and they're not starting, you could move to someone else. But you don't want 3 French and 3 Brazil players and then for them all to get rested, right? Obviously that depends on what happens in the Brazil game on Monday, but I'm just using that as an example. So that's why I've not gone for Theo Hernandez. I'm sure he'll be in my team for the rest of the tournament, especially my unlimited transfer team around a 16, but that is something I'm thinking about. Now, it doesn't mean that teams on 4 points like Netherlands, like England, won't rotate as well. I guess there's just less chance, but if you're going to do it, it's going to be in match day 3, because you do not want to be resting players throughout the knockout stages. That being said, as much as I can see Southgate changing some players around, I think Harry Maguire is going to start, and I'm pretty sure that Luke Shaw is going to start, because if he doesn't, it means playing Saka or Trippier there, and that means, especially with Trippier, having to play Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Southgate just doesn't want to do that. So I'm pretty sure Shaw and Maguire will play, and as bad as maybe they were against the USA, we know that Southgate's pretty much a kind of defence, safety-minded manager first, so going for that double up looks pretty good. If you're going to back England, you go for defence over attack. The way not the way things have gone so far, because against Iran they were great, but the further Southgate goes through the tournament, I would definitely be looking at defenders over attackers, and I want to have a bit of fun. I want to pick England players, so I'm going to stick with those 2. I've also gone for Nopper and Dumfries, so double up with Netherlands defence. This is their easiest game of the tournament so far against Qatar. I guess from a Qatar point of view, it's their final game. They're already out. It's in front of their home crowd. They've not really got anything to lose. You don't want to go and get like absolutely smashed like 6 or 7-0 or something like that. But they might go for it. So I don't know if going for the double up is necessarily a great choice. But I guess if Noppert doesn't get the clean sheet, I've got Rocher for Uruguay against Ghana. And if Dumfries doesn't get a clean sheet, hopefully he can finally get some attacking returns. But if not, I can always sub him as well. You don't want that kind of thought process for all players because you only have, 4 substitutes to use. But I think that's, if you're looking at backing players because of fixtures, then Qatar is probably like one of the best ones you can get, right? I think they have been probably the worst team in the tournament. Maybe Costa Rica could give them a run for their money as well. So I'm going to probably go for that double up. Noppert at 4.5 million is also pretty cheap. I may default to just having 2 4 million goalkeepers because that does feel kind of nice and ideal, right, that they're so cheap. But for 0.5 million more, I think it's worth going for that Netherlands defence. I think one thing to say, Van Gaal has been quite open about players' minutes and stuff like that. So I think if either of these players wasn't going to play, we'd probably find out before the deadline even comes. So we'll see. They're obviously playing on Tuesday. The other defender I've got playing is Joachim Mæhle. I've gone back to him. So I had him in match day 1. I didn't have him for match day 2 because they played against France. I've got him back in for Australia. I think Denmark will do well in that game. Definite chance of a clean sheet. Whether or not I'm holding on to too much love from Euro 2020 when Joachim Mæhle and obviously Dumfries did really well, I don't know. But we know if they're playing like in those back 5 wing back formations that they can get far forward. They can get forward. They can get attack and return. So that's why he's in there. And also got to remember he's pretty cheap at 4.5 million. And at some point in this, when you're building squads, you've got to take money out of somewhere. So I think for 4.5 million, I still really like him. And my final defender, I've not gone for any 3.5s or any 4s this time. I've got Alba for Spain against Japan. Now, I had him in my team straight away when I started doing a draft, but when Spain were 1-0 up against Germany, I was going to take him out because of the 6-point thing, but they obviously drew that game. Now, I think they can go against Japan and win with a few players rotated, but Jordi Alba came off, I think it was around the 61st minute, so I'm fairly confident he's going to start in match day 3. He also has 2 assists in his first 2 games as well, and I think, look, Japan have been good. I think the result against Costa Rica is maybe going to knock the wind out of them a little bit, but I just think it's so difficult to play against that Spain team, and there's a great chance of a clean sheet. He gets forward as well. He's almost certainly going to be a lock in my team. I'm trying to think about other players that I might want from a kind of defensive point of view, because I know sometimes I do the team selection videos and then I change my picks a little bit when we get towards the deadline. But if I'm looking at clean sheets, I mean, France, possibly, I could go for. But again, there's that threat of rotation. Argentina changed a few players around. I'm not sure there's enough kind of attacking threat in that team. And look, Poland could definitely score. I think Argentina will win that game. Lewandowski could get his 2nd goal in the World Cup as well. Belgium and Croatia I'm ignoring. I'm going to ignore Morocco and Canada. I did have half an eye on Alphonso Davies, possibly as an attacking, someone that's playing in the front 3 but listed as a defender. I'm not completely against that pick for what it's worth, but I don't know about it right now. Maybe a German defender against Costa Rica, Raum, I think, the left back, for example. Maybe even a double up with Spain. Otherwise, there's not really any other options I'm looking at. Brazil, I did consider. Sandro, possibly at just 4.5 million. But if I go for him, I've got to get rid of one of these players, and I think Dumfries, Alba, Maguire and Shaw are pretty much a lock for me. And then it's Joachim Mæhle versus Sandro, and if Brazil gets to 6 points, he could get rotated for Telles anyway, so I'm probably just going to stick to Joachim Mæhle. So I'm not saying this won't change, I'm just saying a lot of these players are pretty much locks for me, I think. So in midfield, I've got quite a few players around that 8 million price point. So Eriksen, Musiala, Saka and Olmo as well. My cheaper midfielder, and I need someone that's 6 million or below because I've got nothing in the bank as it stands, is Damsgaard. But I'm really not sure about him for a number of reasons. One, he was benched in the first game and Skov Olsen played. Now that was reversed in the game against France where Damsgaard started and Skov Olsen was benched. So it's hard to know what's going to happen against Australia. Ultimately, they both look like minutes risk. So maybe I should just avoid them altogether. But also, on paper, Denmark are probably the stronger team. You'd expect them to score against Australia. But the way the group is set up, I'm not sure if I want to double up in attack. I think Eriksen is still a decent enough pick. A lot of set pieces, penalties, etc. nailed on to start. But a double up when the group looks like this, I'm just not convinced, because I look at that, right, before the tournament started, I'm sure most of us had France to win the group and Denmark to come second. Australia got 3 points on the board. They just need to not lose that game, because however many players France rotate with, I'm sure they won't lose to Tunisia, right? I mean, it's the World Cup, so anything can happen. It's football, anything can happen, etc. But even if they rotate, they might get a draw against Tunisia, then they'll top the group with 7 points. If that happens, Tunisia will be on 2. Australia just need to not lose, because if they draw, they'll finish on 4, they'll finish in 2nd place, and Denmark will go out. Now, obviously, both those games will be played at the same time, so it's not like they'll know what's already happened. And at some point, Denmark might absolutely just have to go for it to get that win. And it's going to depend on who gets the first goal. I know that's a cliche, but if Australia get the first goal, they're just going to defend for their lives. If Denmark get it, that might open up the game a little bit, because if Denmark beat Australia, obviously they will then go through. So there's a lot riding on that game. I just think it could be tight. And if that is the case, and obviously we've seen a lot of 0-0 so far this tournament, having a double up is just not something I'm massively confident about. I'm not sure who I would go for necessarily for 6 million or below, because in match day 2 I've got Kudus, but he plays against Uruguay. That's a much tougher game than in match day 2, so I'd have to keep an eye. Maybe I could go for someone from Serbia, possibly. Maybe I just go really cheap like Rodrigo de Paul again and give him a kind of another chance to see what happens and use the million elsewhere. But I'm not seeing a huge amount of standout picks, so we'll wait and see what happens with rumoured team news and stuff like that. And again, I could just have him in the team and then maybe look to someone else later. But I'm just a bit worried about Damsgaard. But anyway, we'll leave that for now. That's why, because I think Australia will just be defending for their lives. But who knows? Maybe I'll be completely wrong about that. Elsewhere, I think that Germany have been better than maybe the points suggest so far. Like, they were really good against Japan. I'm not saying they were unlucky to lose, but they were probably unlucky not to score 1 or 2 more in that game. And Musiala's just looks so good. Absolute baller. I've not really seen him too much in the Bundesliga. I know he's been talked about a lot. It's nice to see him play now at the World Cup, right? He's been excellent. Shame he didn't play for England, but that's a whole different story. So I kind of want him. I actually think I want a double up for Germany attacks. I think they're going to do really well against Costa Rica, given how poor they have been so far. But going for another midfielder is tricky. It really would be someone like Gundogan, possibly on penalties, or Sané, but he's 9 million. So it's whether or not I can get that money to upgrade to him. Now, he didn't play in the first game because of injury. He only came on late in the game against Spain, again, probably because he's recovering. Hopefully, he's now in a position where he will start. And if he does, that double up could be quite nice. But that's why I've gone for Musiala, because he started the first 2 games, and I think that will. I think he has to play. He's just too good to bench. So he should play against Costa Rica. So he's in. I think I'll probably go for Saka, because I want that 3rd England player, and I don't think I'm going to have the money to go for Harry Kane up front. So he's in right now. There could be some rotation with England, so I could always default to Bellingham instead, but he's in right now. And obviously I've already talked a little bit about Eriksen. Like, I do think that game will be tight and that Australia will have a don't lose approach, but it doesn't mean that obviously Denmark can't score, and Eriksen is kind of the talisman of that team, so he's in. And then Olmo's a bit like Musiala. I just think that Spain, look, despite what happened in the first game, Germany and Spain are obviously the best 2 teams in that group, and Japan have been great, but Spain are just going to be too good for them, I think. So I kind of want a Spain attacker in that team. My only worry is there could be rotation. They've got a lot of attackers that could play. I think so far it's pretty much been Torres, Asensio, and Olmo. And Olmo's 8 million. Asensio is 8.5, so he's a little bit trickier to fit in. And Torres is a forward. So Olmo's basically in by default, that I think if those 3 start, he's the only one I can afford that's also a midfielder. I don't want to have to take up a spot for Torres up front. So that's why he's in, because I just want to target that game. Again, if we just quickly look at the matches that are coming, like other 8 million midfielders, like Bergwijn, who's 7 million, could possibly come in. But I think with Depay back now, there's a risk for his minutes. Like, could Gakpo play up front, for example, alongside Depay? I'm not sure. Bergwijn could be okay, but he's maybe a bit of a risk. Like Gareth Bale, I'm not going to go for him against England or anything like that. France have already covered quite a bit. There's not a huge amount of standout picks. I'm probably not going to go for Hazard again. Someone like Perisic could be good. Perisic or Modric, because Belgium have just been that bad. I think Perisic, is 7.5 million. He could be a good option and maybe someone I go for, but not a huge amount of other standouts. Like Fernandes for Portugal against South Korea, I would like, but he's I think he's 9.5. So he's just too expensive to get to. So that's currently my thoughts right now. I don't think we'll see too many changes there unless I get an inkling to go for someone else. I just like those players around that 8 million price point. But if you think there's someone else I should go for, or if you think there's a much better 6 million or below midfielder, let me know in the comments below. So adding in the forwards, and I currently have Messi, Depay and Richarlison. Now I want to talk about Richarlison first of all. If Brazil win their second game, they'll then be on 6 points and there will be a threat of rotation. I'm not sure I'll go for Richarlison. I'll probably just opt for someone else instead. Now when I look at the rest of this squad as it stands, the likes of Joachim Mailer, Luke Shaw, Maguire, Dumfries, Ericsson, Musiala, etc., there's not a huge amount of risks in terms of starts, okay? Obviously Damsgaard I've already spoken about, but most of the players are okay. And we will have 3 free transfers to use within the match day. So if I catch a lineup and one of my players isn't starting, I can remove them for someone else that hasn't played yet, as long as I do it before kickoff, and I can get their points instead. So I could take the risk with Richarlison. The problem is, when you look at the fixtures for match day 3, he doesn't play until the penultimate game of the group stages against Cameroon. Then it's only Switzerland and Serbia. Now, I've not seen the lineup for Serbia for match day 2 yet, because it hasn't played at the time of recording. But Vlahovic is 8.5 million, so I couldn't afford him anyway. Mitrovic is 7, or I've got Mbolo at 6.5. They're really my only options if Richarlison doesn't play, because for other teams, if their first choice number 9 doesn't start, their second choice number 9 is probably cheaper. But for Brazil, they've done it the other way around. Richarlison is 7.5, and I would assume if he doesn't play, Gabriel Jesus would play, but he's 9 million. So if I see that Richarlison hasn't started, I couldn't even go for Jesus if I wanted to. So that's my main worry. If I go for him, I'm kind of stuck with options to go instead. If I wanted to take a punt, I think the player I would look at is Germany's number 9, Füllkrug, who came off the bench against Spain and got the goal. Now, he's not started the first 2 games. So that's obviously a massive worry. I think from what I was kind of reading and listening to on kind of podcasts and stuff, he was in the German second division, I think, last year. He's only just made his debut for Germany. So the chances of him starting are not that high. But for 7.5 million, maybe he's worth the risk. Maybe the German manager will want to do something a bit different, go and get goals against Costa Rica, and just make sure that they get into those knockout rounds. So he could be worth a punt. But then you run into exactly the same issue, that if he doesn't start in match day 3, the games afterwards are Spain versus Japan. So maybe I could go for Ferran Torres for Spain, for example. Uruguay and Ghana, so I wouldn't be able to afford the likes of Nunez or anyone like that. You know, Ronaldo would be too expensive. Son would be too expensive. And then you're back to kind of Brazil, Switzerland or Serbia. So you run into those same issues. So I'm not quite sure what to do there, whether to take that risk on Richarlison, take the risk on Füllkrug, or just go someone a little bit safer and even cheaper and use that money elsewhere, possibly. If Brazil don't win their second game, this doesn't matter. I'll probably just go for Richarlison. But I wanted to talk through that scenario. The other 2 are a little bit easier. I think with Messi, like if we have a quick look at the the groups for Argentina as it stands, they're on 3 points, so they don't necessarily need to win the game, but obviously winning the game would give them a much better chance of going through, because Saudi Arabia may well go and beat Mexico. We'll have to see what happens in that game. So Messi's definitely going to start, right? He's on penalties, everything goes through him, goal and assist in the last game, etc. He's going to be in. I don't think there's any point in trying to find 0.5 more to get Harry Kane necessarily. I think the likes of Mbappe could get rested. I can't remember if it was Euro 2020 or World Cup 2018, but Mbappe got rested in one of those tournaments in match day 3, so I probably won't go for him. Neymar's injured, so Messi's probably the one I'm going to go for. Just on Harry Kane, by the way, I think that ankle is maybe still causing him some problems. So we do usually get the England team in advance, right? Sometimes the night before. So if Kane doesn't play and Callum Wilson plays instead, that's my cheap forward that I will go for, and I'll just move Saka on to someone else. But I suspect that Harry Kane will just play. Either way, I'm going to go for Messi. And then Depay is definitely someone I want this week. He hasn't started yet, which is an issue, but he's been building up minutes. And Louis van Gaal has been quite open in terms of what he can play. I think Depay himself said that he should be fine to play 90 minutes. It doesn't mean that the medical staff and the manager think the same, but I think if he gets 60 minutes or more in this game, he's going to be worth going for, because Qatar have been pretty poor, and at 8.5 million is a pretty good price. He'd be on penalties, etc. as well. So I really want to go for him. Unless I find out that he's not going to start, he's pretty much a lock in the team. So let me know what you think about this team overall in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like I said, few worries over Richarlison if Brazil win the second game. Definitely worries over Damsgaard. I don't think I'll go for him. I'm not quite sure who I'd move to. I might just go cheap, like 5 million, and just spend the money elsewhere. Maybe even move Richarlison up to an 8.5. Who knows? But overall, I think the rest of the team looks pretty good. I think most of those players are locked. Like I said, let me know below what you think, and I'll catch you again soon for another video.